6 months. It was not like to get that. Well, so 6 months will be November.
That's an extra minute, my apologies. All right, moving on in call the roll. Of course, Mr. Yoder is absent today. Ms. Cookerbrook?
Here.
Mr. Coleman?
Present.
Mr. Booth?
Here.
And Mr. Turner?
Here.
All right, 74, which is a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next item would be approval of the agenda.
No amendments or any other suggestions?
Any with staff?
No, I'm going to send that today.
I move we approve the agenda advertised.
Second.
Motion is second. No other discussion. Call the roll.
All right, Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Cookerbrook?
Yes.
Mr. Booth?
Yes.
And Mr. Turner?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Your agenda is approved.
And the approval of minutes from August the 24th.
Didn't mark it. Can I ask a question first, or?
On the minutes. You're doing it.
I'm sorry, I got ahead of us.
We'll talk about that soon.
Yeah.
He's ready to get this meeting rolling.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep the ball rolling.
Because I appreciate that, because like I say, I gotta leave at 12:30. The approval of the minutes from August 24th.
I'm sorry.
There's no other discussion. I'll move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion is second.
All right. Ms. Cookerbrook?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Booth?
Yes.
And Mr. Turner? All right.
Now, approval.
I'm sorry.
So, your minutes are approved.
Any questions?
Yes, that was it. I was told under the recreation, some of our programs had to be abandoned or stopped because of people in and out. Did we go ahead with the soccer program?
Yes, so we've gone ahead with the soccer program, and all the programs are continuing, but what we have had to do, particularly related to rec football, is collapse a couple of the teams, because we've ended up that they were already pretty close. Some of them were pretty close to the numbers that you had to have, and so when we had some children that dropped out either because they had COVID, they were quarantined. I think one broke an arm. So as that ticked off, we ended up having to collapse them. But everything is
But
continuing.
did it combine what
Yes.
was left?
Yes.
Okay.
So everyone that is in can still play. Yes.
As of today.
As of today.
Right now?
Yes.
This
And we-
moment?
yes. And we have, I believe we've actually closed registration for soccer, and have, we have to have, of course, a separate insurance policy and all those kind of things to move forward.
Does it look like soccer is we have enough teams to actually have a soccer league this time?
Yes, it does look like. Let's so far, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. I was just wondering, when I seen the soccer bill, I was just wondering how everything might have affected that, and worst case scenario, we're prepared for next year, but.
Right, yes.
And the New River Resource Authority trash hauling is $40,000. Is that for 1 month, or is it?
Yes.
Do we know, any idea what we're averaging as far as daily loads? At one time, we were up to 3.
I don't know.
I'm just curious.
I'm not sure, but I will add that to a meeting I have scheduled.
Yeah, it just, I don't know how, it's just something I've always tried to keep up with, and I know we were at 3 and 4 or something during the pandemic. I think one
Oh, yeah.
day they had 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could look at the thing and find out what it was, but as far as an average, I don't know what an average would be.
And we have gone ahead and been working with Missy about maybe getting an insert put in the tax bills about recycling and what you can take to the transfer station.
Good.
And all of those kind of things, so hopefully that'll work out.
The December bill?
Mhm.
We need to relay to the hauling company again about staying out of certain people's yard. Apparently it's not, from what I understand, it's not the older driver, but it's the younger one that's taking that one curve, still taking it too short.
Okay,
I understand it's a rough curve, but if the older person can do it, the younger one can. It's just a matter of slowing down just a little bit.
Yep.
okay.
And that's not a bad thing on that road anyway, so.
And so could you remind me where that is? So I can.
State Route 710.
Okay.
But it's really
I know,
live on.
yeah, I know.
That's one of my neighbors. I noticed they went out this weekend and hauled, where it got dipped down, they've hauled dirt, topsoil in there and reseeding it again themselves. And, if they could just, I mean, you don't have to get over it that far.
Yep, I understand.
And I know that's a dangerous road to be traveling with a tractor trailer.
Yeah.
If one can do it, they both can.
Being we're on the subject of trash hauls, I've been having to bring this up and I keep forgetting it. Could you remind the drivers when they leave at 4 o'clock in the morning,
Okay.
if they run an empty, I don't see no use of using the jack brake coming off them hills.
Okay.
Because some of them said that early in the mornings when that sound sweep, all of a sudden that jack brake jars them out there, you know. In the empty truck, I don't see where they need to run the jack brake. So just sort of friendly.
Yes.
Because these people are pretty upset.
I could totally see that, especially at 4 in the morning, which
Yeah.
other conversations is dark at 4 in the morning.
They'd really be happy with them emptying them dumpsters at 3 in the morning, but we took care of that. That's not happening.
I just have one question about the extra bills. All test, was that for our treatment of the yellow jackets? I would think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
All tests.
I know they've been in a,
Yeah, we had a
Bunker
bee
crop this year.
infestation in one of the, a couple of the green boxes.
Yeah, I know.
believe that's probably what that
Are they gonna kind of make sure that gets monitored? We certainly don't want somebody to, who has an issue with stings to.
I was mowing a field of hay up near some green boxes at Little Mountain or Buffalo Mountain. It wasn't funny, but I see people come in, they throw a bag in, and they start swatting and run back to the car.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's really bad
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, so. Well, no other questions, I'll take a motion to approve.
All right, and I have 4 to-dos related to trash items. It's just in.
I'll make the motion to approve the bills as presented
That includes the extras.
and the extras, yep, as presented.
Second.
Motion and second, Will.
Okay. Ms. Pickerman,
Yes,
Mr. Booth,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
and Mr. Turner.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right, your monthly bill distribution has been approved.
Yeah, that goes right on time. Mr. McNeil.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here today as an NRTA board member. I've been appointed by this board every 2 years since 2002. I'm here today to request that this board approve a proclamation of retirement for Terry Smith, who retired at the end of June after 32 years of service to NRCA in Floyd County. Floyd County has benefited tremendously from Terry's legacy of service. Head Start was expanded. CHIP program was brought to the NRV, the Homeless Intervention Program, and the Floyd Family Resource Center were all started back in the early 90s. And in the early 2000s, the NRCA added the Virginia Cares program to help ex-offenders transition back into the community, the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program that provides free tax preparation to folks with low income, and the To Our House Thermal Shelter, and the Swift Start Employment Support Program. She was an invaluable partner with a group of Floyd residents that successfully fundraised thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to repair and renovate the Floyd area office. As some of you recall, the building was vacated for several years because the roof failed and there was severe leaking into the other building. That enabled us to, at the same time we repaired the building, we renovated it, so that you really can't tell it was a former hospital. And it is going to be available for the next 50 years to serve Floyd County residents. She also was a strong partner in developing the Floyd Backpack Program. Every year that we held the event, we would see her on the front lines helping. Because of Terry, NRCA is also one of the Virginia Community Action Agencies, one of 6 participating in the Virginia Two-Generation Whole Family Pilot Project, which seeks to use comprehensive case management and coordinated services to serve the needs of the whole family in an effort to break that cycle of poverty. NRCA also provides the 24/7 homeless hotline in the NRD, and it's been part of a strong partner in establishing the Floyd Initiative for Safe Housing. And NRCA was also the administrator for many thousands of dollars in rent and mortgage relief before the state took over administering those funds itself. So I'm asking you to approve a proclamation honoring Terry's service and commitment in Floyd County, to Floyd County, and having served with her for 19 years, 10 of them as board chair. I want to emphasize that I consider her service and her legacy to be a gold standard in nonprofit leadership. NRCA has consistently nailed compliance at all levels, federal, state, and regional. And we hope to present this proclamation along with ones from the General Assembly and other localities at her retirement celebration on September 24th at 3 o'clock at Randolph Park. And I would love it if one of you could be present to present it to her. Do you have any questions?
I think you covered it very well.
And I'm assuming you'll take action later today.
Yeah. So looking forward motion to approve the recognition of retirement.
So moved.
Second. Motion is second. Any other discussion? Call the roll.
No? Ms. Cookabook?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Booth?
Yes.
And Mr. Thurman?
Yes.
All right, so the proclamation is approved, and Mr. McIntosh, can you remind me, so I'm extravagant in the notes, when the ceremony is?
I'm sorry, say that again?
When the ceremony is, when that would be?
Retirement party.
The retirement party.
The celebration is 24th. September, Friday, 24th at 3 o'clock.
At 3 p.m. at Randolph Park?
Yeah, Randolph Park in the large pavilion.
Gotcha.
We're doing it outdoors.
Excellent.
And that will be an opportunity to meet the new CEO, Crystal Thompson,
Right.
who joined the organization in May. There's an overlap between Terry and Crystal. Right. I appreciate it, and to the members of the press, we're trying to keep it low-key, just a Pfizer on the 24th. So, yeah. All right, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Yes, you too.
You too.
About 10 minutes if you want to do for yours.
Okay, sure. Sure, we'll move right ahead and I will do my best to be heard. Wave to me if you can't hear me. So I think I will just move to some of the items, since the first items are really related to the schools. Some of those things, I'll move just to my county administrator's report update items for a moment, if that's all right. Now the first one, having said that, is related to the schools. And I have been involved in construction project meetings both at the high school, and then after that several of us met about the continuing HVAC and boilers project. Generally, the high school project appears to be going well. It is a little bit behind, primarily right now because of two items. One, they are struggling to have enough brick masons to, of course, that is required for that building. They said they have two that consistently show up, and otherwise they have gone through several. The irony of us not having enough tradespeople to finish the trades building did not escape any of us. So that makes it even more important. They also have some delays related to the metal garage doors, and so that's crucial because those have to be in before they can actually close the space and start finishing things off. They're hopeful those will be in November, so instead of finishing the project November, it'll probably be January-ish right now is the hope. And so because of that delay, they have moved forward with doing some of the renovation work in the existing building that was supposed to be done afterwards, as long as it doesn't displace any of the students. So they're moving forward with some of those things. And for the most part, though, most of the materials are on site. I will say between our contractor and a lot of pressure from the architecture firm, they did a really good job of ordering things very, very early, which turned out to be really important. So that's good. The HVAC boilers project is not going quite as well, candidly. There, of course, as you know, there is air conditioning available in all the buildings, so that part is good, and most of the work is done. There are a couple of items related to the boilers, and some of the original design had the hot water boiler for like the kitchen and the bathroom also connected to the overall boiler, which meant in the summertime, in order to have enough heat for cooking in the kitchen and to be sanitary in the kitchen and bathrooms, you had to turn on the big boiler. So they're going to still have to do some work around those items, but they're not going to do those until Christmas because that requires the students to not be in the buildings. So there are still a couple of small punch list items. There's a couple of covers that are still needed in some of the schools. But generally, other than that particular coil item, they're pretty close to done. And in fact, the last discussion was about where do we set the automatic heat and air conditioning toggle on and off points. And so it was a discussion about 68, 72, all that. So that kind of feels like we're getting to the end. So I'm excited about that. I put on here results from employee survey, but I have to admit while I did it and sent it to the leadership team, I have not gotten it distributed to everybody yet. It's really basic though, so hopefully I'll get some responses to you for the next meeting. But it's essentially, what is it that you really like about your job other than pay? Why is it you come? If there was one thing you could fix. And all of that, and it can be anonymous or you can put where you work, that's up to you, but the way it's set up, you can offer something anonymous. And my thought in putting that out is, of course, it's always good for employee engagement to understand those things, particularly given our labor market situation. But as I mentioned to you before, I've been looking at our personnel policy, and so wanted to try to build in and encourage the things that we can that folks like about working for Floyd County as we go through that process, and maybe change the tone a little bit of some of the things that's been in there. So that's what the update is on that. Staffing for EMS, you saw that there's a notation that Kevin and I and Philip have been looking at what our EMS staffing situation is, particularly because of COVID, but also just because the number of people who work outside the county. We have really struggled with having the number of part-time and volunteer people we need to make the schedule work. Some of the folks who have been very loyal, dedicated part-time employees, their primary employers have told them they can no longer run our EMS part-time because of the potential COVID risk. So I want to make sure that I'm clear that it's not that all the part-time people just decided to not work. There's complicating factors that make it difficult for them to help us out right now. And so because of that, we've been really struggling to make sure that there are always 2 man trucks 24/7, 365. And candidly, there's been times that we have not met that goal. And that's very concerning and problematic in general, but especially while we have all of these other issues in the community. So we are looking at to cover that, and we can we'll probably ask you about calling a meeting of the EMS board at your next meeting to go into this in more detail and get your thoughts. But it is potentially meaning we might need to pick up as many as 3 full-time employees. So just wanted to let you all have a little background, because Kevin and I are going to start talking to folks about how we might work this with the volunteers and everything else. So didn't want you to be surprised about that.
Clock's behind me, so. Update on DEQ. This is the report that was actually submitted by Draper Ayton on our behalf related to the corrective action status evaluation for the landfill. So for those of you that are online, it's about 3/4 of an inch thick. So I have gone through most of this. Fortunately, there's a lot of graphs and charts, so that's easier reading. We will have the folks come to hopefully one of your next 2 meetings from Draper Ayton and go through it. Generally speaking, what this report says is nothing seems to be getting worse, so that's the good news. Some things are getting better, but there are some things are not getting better at the rate the state would like to see. So I think that's the really
moving the,
Stop moving the target.
Yeah.
yes.
and get close.
Yeah, it's very challenging.
I know.
20 years, when we closed it, we were told 20 years of monitoring, and that's it.
And we got so close.
Oh, we got very close.
What, 3
And
years
then
ago?
they keep changing.
Well, we are trying some of the secondary things, as you know, to work on this. And you probably saw a bit in the paper to go ahead and start moving some of the vehicles that are out there off. Dr. Wheeler's committed to get the school buses out. There are 7 school buses sitting out there. To get those moved. And related to another request, I got the paperwork back from DEQ about if there was to be some other uses on top of the landfill, what those could be and what those requirements might be. So I will follow up with you all and the folks that asked about that and see where that comes back. But there is a way to do that.
But it'll be different criteria for what's actually on top of the closed landfill versus another portion.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And as I read through those regulations, it primarily has to do, as you clearly know, with not messing with any of the monitoring and not puncturing anything on the top and collecting anything you leave behind. That's a pretty broad brush, but that's generally what it is. So, and Mr. Chair, with that, I have a couple more things, but it's 9 o'clock, so I can just draw a line there.
and we'll get ready for our public comment period. It is the intent that all persons attending the meeting of the board, regardless of handicapping conditions, shall have an opportunity to participate. If any person present requires any special assistance, please let the board know in order that arrangements can be made. So with that, I'll open the public comment period. Here to make public comment. Limit your comments to 4 minutes. State the district you're from and your name.
And Mr. Chair, if I might help clarify for these folks, so these would be your general public comments, and then for the public hearing, because I know some of these folks are here for the public hearing, that would be after that.
Yes. Public comment? Seeing none, I'll declare the public comment period closed. Short and sweet.
We have until, it looks like, Mr. Chair, 9:30 for the next item, if you wanted us to keep moving through my list.
Continue on.
Okay. So if there weren't any questions about the DEQ things, I'll move on to update on county staffing items. As you know, we've had some staff out with a variety of illnesses, and so we have been without our maintenance person for several weeks now. We are hopeful that he will be back on the 20th. And we'll go from there, but just wanted folks to know that if they haven't seen him around or things haven't been responded to, that's primarily it. But if there is, of course, some type of urgent concern, certainly reach out to myself and Angie, and between us and Mark and Kevin, and depending what it is, Finn and Fenwick, we'll get it addressed. So wanted to let you know about that. We have posted 3 separate positions, and so it was advertised in the paper, and then 2 are on, the 2 professional positions are on Indeed. And those, one is for a IT staff member, an IT technician. And so I currently have 10 applications in hand for that. And I've asked Kevin to help me go through those for qualifications, but several of them look pretty good. And in addition to that, we started the sad process of looking for someone to fill at least 2/3 of Cindy's shoes. And so Cindy and I actually have 4 phone interviews scheduled with people tomorrow, potentially 5 if I can get up with the 5th person. And several of them are very well qualified. Several of them are from the area, or at least from kind of the region. So we're hopeful about that, and we will see. I will tell you though, at this point, none of them are a CPA, so that would still be great, because that is one of the many qualities that Cindy brings that other folks don't. But we did not make that our qualification. We made that something that we would like to have. And we also recognize and was posted that Cindy does so many things that we'll have to move some of her responsibilities to other folks on the staff to make it work as well. And so exactly how that division will come out will depend on the person that we hire. There was also a posting for a part-time, I think we're back to part-time concessions person to work with us. And related to all that, I went ahead and created a new employment application for the county. We've been using the state application, which has become almost impossible to find and cannot be filled out electronically. It's very hard for people to read, so we have a new form and have started using that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can say on county staffing. I don't think so. And then if I might, Mr. Chair, the 2 other things that I should have put on here, but failed to, is we have had continuing discussion, which started with my predecessor about a rail station up this direction. So, rail station up in the Blacksburg, Christiansburg area. Oh, thank you. That was one of the things I had. Apparently I have a couple more. But we have not been asked to make a commitment, but I wanted to let you know where we are on the continuing conversation. And essentially what it would be is to become a part of a rail authority that would then be responsible for a new location. And currently, of course, the big financial contributors would be, the big players, so Montgomery, Christiansburg, Blacksburg, the two universities. The numbers we've looked at preliminarily say Floyd should put in, I think it was around 8,000 a year. And so some of the other jurisdictions are moving forward to start the process of starting that authority. They only need, I think it's either 3 or 4 members to start, but then others can join. So when we last talked, I think their plan was to go ahead and start with those 4 jurisdictions, and they'd be happy to come talk to you once we know more, and you all can have some more time to ponder. But we would, of course, be welcome to be a part of that if we want to. But I know that you all in the past already have made it clear to me that before we commit to a regional effort that requires our financial commitment, you always want to know exactly what we're getting for that. And I don't think they're to the point they can entirely tell us that yet. So I shared that with them, that we are interested, but we need a little more details, I would think. So that's where we are on that.
Will you also be joining us at our board meetings? There's kind of like that preliminary board.
Mm-hmm. I can do that if you all would like.
Yeah, I go.
And, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, I'd like you there too.
A couple of other quick items is, of course, you had us advertise and then extend the date for selective service board members. And so, in addition to Mr. Yoder's interest, we have now received 2 letters of interest from folks who would like to serve. So we'll probably need to see if you all would like to schedule interviews with those folks potentially at your next meeting, and see who you would like to select. If that's your interest, that direction you all would like to go?
Fine with me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because all they asked for was just 2-week extension of the advertising.
Yeah.
We haven't got anybody now.
Yeah. Well, now you have 3. You have 3. Yes. Another set of appointments that you'll need to look at is for the Tourism Development Council. Of course, you see Kathleen is here with us today, and so we focused on that first. But now we need to start focusing in on those at-large public members. To date, I have only received 1 application, which went both to myself and to the town. And of course, you all have 2 slots there. And then the chamber has also forwarded their recommendation for the person that would need to be approved by both the town and the county. So first I would encourage you, I guess, if you have some thoughts about who would be great on the TDC from a county perspective. If you all have folks you could reach out to or would like us to reach out to and let them know that this is available, be happy to do that. So we can go ahead and move forward with that, and maybe also have some applications for you to review. Just do a meeting that includes several interviews.
And it's already been advertised, so advertising it again probably would not help.
Yes.
No.
Press the button. Yes.
And then the final item Cindy was kind enough to remind me of is that you all appoint folks to the Planning Commission, and one of those seats is up. And so you need to go ahead and decide if you would like to reappoint that person, or we need to advertise and go forward, and how you would like to handle that.
When did it expire?
It will expire October 31st.
Okay.
So I was just looking to see if you wanted me go ahead and advertise and let that person
That
know
would be
to
good.
reapply?
That's how it normally would be.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think the final thing I have for my report, without going through the action items, is just to let you all know that in recent weeks, the health department folks, especially the BTC, have been very helpful. For some reason, we weren't as engaged with them for a while, but they have become a very good partner for us. And so we've been getting a lot more information about what's going on. We've been sitting on the weekly task force calls now with the updates from the hospitals and the universities and all those kind of things. And Ashley sent me something which I failed to print out for you. She sent it last night, so I will get that out. But essentially, as you can imagine, the focus is primarily on COVID, although there's also some discussion about hepatitis in all of this. And in the Roanoke Valley in particular, there's an absolute lack of capacity. And you all probably saw that in the paper. The New River Valley is doing slightly better, but everyone is pretty much hoping we are at peak and things will start to improve. But that's pretty much where we are on those kind of items. They have been helping us out with the state has put out under the Department of Labor and Industry some new guidance, which is requirements for employers driven primarily by the CDC. And so some of those get to things like masking indoors when your levels are to the point that pretty much all of Virginia is. So I will need to sit down and pretty much rewrite our infectious disease plan in the next couple of weeks and bring that back to you all for consideration. But they're going to be helping with us a little bit. And finally, the one piece of good news out of all that is, as you know, our BTC money will fund a lot of PPE, PPE. And so we have handed out a great deal of PPE in the last couple of months. There has been a lot distributed both at the Replenish event and at Yoga Jam. And they used our temperature monitors, and the Department of Health came and handed out a take-home COVID test. We've been able to use some of those with our staff as well as we have different flare-ups that occur. So that has been great, and those have all been free to us. In addition, as of yesterday, Finn and Finwork has been added to the list of vendors. So when we have to do a COVID deep clean, they'll do it for one time for every building if needed upon an incident, but they are now on the call list. So if something happens, then essentially our donation to that effort will pay and Finwork to do the cleaning that they've been doing for us at our expense up to this point. So that would be very helpful.
So if you could explain to everybody exactly what this council was out of. It was from the New River Valley Regional Commission, and I just want to make sure that everybody understands who the folks are and what's going on. So explain the acronyms.
Okay, thank you. So yes, this started out of the New River Valley Commission, which of course Floyd County is a member, and a couple of our board members serve on that board as well. And so they're a PDC which is charged with dealing with issues of greater than local significance, and obviously COVID, along with other many public health items, are greater than local significance. And so out of that was born a BTC, which is supposed to be, and I'm going to forget the acronym on that. So business
Continuity.
Thank you all. BCT. Thank you. I appreciate it. The business continuity team, who is working in partnership with the health department and has a staff person, Ashley Briggs, that is full-time focused on this, in addition to some other folks. And what's made it really great is she is in the regional office. She is very accessible. I have yet to find a time that I've called her that she has not called me back within about an hour or two. And that's usually been when she's speaking somewhere. So very, very accessible, and talks to Dr. Bissell, who of course is our regional health director, multiple times a day. So it's been making a big difference in our ability to understand what is the state of affairs, what is available to us, and what is their best guidance from the health department in pretty quick order. So that's been really, really helpful.
Yeah, as a member of the Regional Commission, I just wanted to make sure that everybody in our audience, as well as those of you at home, understand that a regional approach to this pandemic has been absolutely it's so spot on to help with mitigating certain developments as they've come about. And it also helps local businesses. If a business has a flare-up, if a business has an outbreak, the continuity team can go right in and help them. So any of our local businesses that may be on or listening, this is available to you as well. It's part of our regional emphasis on trying to make sure, not just with the pandemic, but with many things, but obviously the business continuity team was specifically developed to handle these things in the pandemic. And I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that.
Thank you, ma'am. And as an emphasis of that, there actually have been a couple of businesses in our county that have taken advantage of this assistance and either coming up with policies, doing cleans, any of those kind of things, and they've reported as well. It's been very, very responsive. So thank you. That's not enough. Yes, we can go back to, Chair, if you like, we can go back to some of the other items for a little bit. Teachers flying along today. Do you want to skip the school board?
So before you, can I circle back, Mr. Chairman, on the update on the school construction projects? I know we have an action item here later, or whenever. Is that in particular related, or is that part of the, as I understand it, maybe Dr. Wheeler will probably be able to explain it a little bit more, but that's the CARES, that's the new filters and a whole new unit on top of Floyd E. It just kind of, is that part of our ongoing issues with things, or do we need to wait for him?
This is what he tells us about every month.
Right.
When he tells us that it's adding back in those things we took out to make the original HVAC more affordable.
Right.
I don't think it's part of the problems.
Okay.
It's, the problems were with the original setup.
Okay. Okay.
And this isn't the CARES, it's coming out of the ESSER, which is
Right.
the additional money that is coming in.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you. If I might, to your point, ma'am, the additional cost related to the boilers and HVAC, a fair amount of that has been eaten by the contractor. A certain amount of that has come out of contingency. And then there is a remaining amount that is actually come out of some other school funds, but it is not a request to the county. I think that's about $9,000.
Okay, and in terms of those, when you sat in on the meetings with the construction information, when you say the contractor has eaten some of the costs, was there what is the lingo that's used when a project isn't completed by the time? Is there a penalty clause that was put into effect with this contract concerning if a job hadn't been completed by such a date that we received money because it wasn't completed?
I don't know if there's a clause like that, but that is certainly not anything that's come into play. What the issue with the HVAC boiler system has been primarily, as I understand it, is just the buildings are older and some things weren't designed exactly the way they probably should have been. And of course there's been the continuing issues that everyone has with getting supplies. So where there's also been a certain amount of eating cost is the architects, it's a maximum price with them. So the architects have put in significantly more time than the contract would have initially required to fix these things. So I guess the short version of all of it is, you know, there is a portion that is beyond, I think it's about $9,000, Dr. Miller can answer better, that is beyond what's in the contract and contingencies and all that. And so they're taking it out of their funding, but this one has just been more bumpy.
And also, many times, I don't recall right offhand what ended up being in the contract, but many times you have variables and variances that specifically address what they consider disaster situation.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they invoke the pandemic as
A
that.
disaster, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably. So, I guess if we'd like, since we've had this discussion, Mr. Chair, if you want to consider maybe 9A. Or we can do something, or we can take a break. It's up to you.
We can take an action on that one when we would take a
Approval of a budget supplement in $99.01, with the revenue source being federal escrow funds and the expenditures being the operation and maintenance category for controls and connector valve replacement at Floyd Elementary School and HVAC rooftop unit replacement at Floyd Elementary School, kindergarten building, and cleaning and sanitizing supplies for the school division.
If you're ready, I'd make that motion and we approve.
Second.
motion second, any other discussion? Hearing none, go ahead and call the roll.
That's it. Mr. Booth,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Ms. Cookenberg,
Yes.
and Mr. Thurman.
Yes.
All right, and that has your approval. School board's request has been approved.
We've got about 9 minutes for public comment. We'll take a short break